But the second type is what we call intellectual generosity. For example, this will include the giving away of wisdom or knowledge. For example, instead of giving a person a fish, you actually give them a stick and teach them how to fish. In that way, they will be able to provide for themselves. Or today you learn of something, you learn of a way to make life easier, or even a little trick. For example, you learn of a road which will take you back to your home with much less time. And by sharing that little trick with your family, you're also practicing intellectual generosity, because you're helping them use ways to make lives easier for themselves. And now the third type of generosity is what we call emotional generosity. And this will include the acts of giving that makes other people feel happy or safe. For example, in Buddhism, a very famous bodhisattva called Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, or Guang Bodhisattva, is best known as the giver of fearlessness. No matter where you go, just as long as you chant Guang Bodhisattva's name or Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva's name, and he will be there to make you feel safe, to make you feel that everything is okay. So this is an example of emotional generosity. And there's one thing which we must remember is that whatever form generosity takes, it is always characterized by a profound sharing of the self and the others. Why do we do that? Because when we first start practicing generosity, we would usually be consumed by the thought that doing something for ourselves is easier, but it's harder to do something for other people. Therefore, in the beginning, for those who vow or those who initiate at the thoughts of practicing generosity, it would actually help to think of generosity as something that benefits mainly the self. And as we look at the different types of generosity, we need to also bear in mind that generosity has its advantages. It has its good things. And now let's look at them. What are the significance of generosity? For one thing, generosity represents the beginning of our profound acceptance of others. When we learn to give to others, we also accept them as a part of our lives, and we embrace them. And secondly, generosity is the basis of our capacity to help them. Before you make somebody's life easier, before you make someone happy, you will have to have a generous mind. You would have to have the willingness to want to help them and to give things to them. Therefore, if people are tired, hungry, and poor and in need, and then we help them overcome this problem before we can help them grow spiritually, this will be one of the final significances of generosity. Those are different ways for us to practice generosity. And if we were to really practice the paramita of generosity, we will have to realize that there is the need to help other people by using expedient methods. And in order for us to really complete this act of generosity or this practice of generosity, then we will have to pay more attention to our thoughts when we practice it. So, for example, there is the need for us to think about the ways for us to be generous without giving rise to feelings of jealousy, anger, possessiveness, and greed. Those will be included in the paramita of generosity as we practice it. And so far we've talked about ways for us to practice generosity, the different kinds of generosity, its goodness, and the higher ways of practicing generosity. Now there are also some points which we must bear in mind that are not the Buddhist way of generosity. So generosity can be practiced in the wrong way when we, in the process of giving to other people, belittle other people or make them lose respect for themselves, to make them feel inferior, or when we're giving out of pride, or giving with a desire, or when we're giving out of a way to force others to be in our debt. These are all incorrect ways of practicing generosity. Remember, when we are giving out of pride, or with a desire for fame, or to force others to being our debt, we are in fact trapped even deeper with delusion. And by practicing such a type of generosity, we'll only end up bringing more harm to the recipient than to help them. That is why we need to talk about pure generosity. It is generosity that does not cling to form. It is generosity that does not cling to characteristics. Just as the quote tells us that pure generosity that does not generate negative emotions is an art that requires both self-knowledge and an understanding of the ways of the world. Once there was a man who woke up in the morning, got ready to go to work, and as he arrived at the railway station, he saw a man sitting in a wheelchair selling pens. Of course, he was a very generous man who wanted to help other people, but since he was in a hurry, he quickly put a $100 bill in front of the man and then kept walking. However, something came up to him. He stopped and turned around and took a few steps back and turned to that man in a wheelchair and said to him, "I'm sorry, I forgot that this is a business to you." Therefore, he picked up 2 pens and then continued walking. By doing so, he had been able to remain aware of the need to make sure that the person sitting in the wheelchair does not lose respect, and that he does not feel inferior for having to sit in a wheelchair and sell pens and waiting for other people to give things to him or to feel sympathy for him. Therefore, this is an example of practicing generosity in an artistic way or in a proper way that does not make other people feel inferior. And now, while generosity helps most when it is pure, sometimes if we are only halfway to learning how to practice pure generosity, sometimes tainted generosity can still bring benefit to us. Why? At least it still teaches us how to become more pure by going beyond our instinctive needs to cling to what we own. So the practice of generosity also gets done in different steps. Even though we're not at the stage of pure generosity yet, at least we can start with the little things that gets us closer to pure generosity. And now there's also what we call a shortcut to practicing generosity. And it is what we call showing happiness upon seeing others engaged in acts of generosity. As in Chinese, it is known as 随喜功德. And to feel happy actually does not involve you in the act of practicing that generosity. But we can still benefit ourselves from that. Why? Because just by feeling happy in seeing other people practicing generosity, you yourself are also giving rise to goodness. So don't feel annoyed or feel pointless in seeing other people practicing the acts of generosity. Just as the Sutra of Past, Present, and Present Cause and Effect says, if we notice even a poor person engaged in a very small act of generosity and are gladdened by the sight, then our reward will be the same as if we have given the thing ourselves. While the value of being gladdened by seeing good things is very important, for the sort of emotional reaction is an indication that our minds have been awakened to a level that is deeper than any material perception or consideration. Therefore, we must never overlook the importance of showing happiness upon seeing others engage in the acts of generosity. And now you may ask, what if I have nothing to give to other people? What if I don't have the ability to help other people? Let me assure you that generosity is easy. It's not difficult to practice it. Why? Because it can be done in even the smallest ways in life. For example, we can practice generosity by, for example, volunteering our time. You give your time to do something for other people. Then you're already practicing generosity. or we can also say words of encouragement. Sometimes even a polite smile, complimenting others, or teaching the Dharma as well as teaching a skill are all ways for us to practice generosity. Even just by showing respect to other people, you will also be practicing generosity. So these are all very important acts of generosity. And now, we've talked about the different ways to practice generosity. So what exactly would be the best form to practice generosity? In the sutra, it tells us that the gift of Dharma excels all forms of gift. As we know that anyone can give money to anybody, but we can never ensure the outcome of giving away money will be good or virtuous. Therefore, if we teach other people Buddhism, give them gifts of Dharma instead of simply giving them money, then at least we'll be ensured that if they do learn from the Dharma, at least they will stay on the right track. And by staying on the right track, they will not be able to do anything that hurts themselves or other people. And that is why the gift of Dharma is very important. Therefore, remember, generosity is not simply a way to assist others. It is also a way for a person to enhance their own life. What's more, generosity does benefit both yourself and other people. Therefore, this is something which we need to bear in mind. And after discussing generosity, let us now look at the second paramita, which is the paramita of discipline. Discipline literally means upholding precepts. So the paramita of discipline means upholding precepts. And what does it do? It helps us find freedom by teaching us to control harmful behavior. So by upholding the precepts, we are following a type of discipline. And in this particular case, in Buddhism, we are upholding or observing the Buddhist precepts. And what do these Buddhist precepts do? They represent a certain type of moral restraint that stops us from doing anything that may harm ourselves or other people. And moral restraint is sometimes also similar to mundane laws. But later we'll discuss ways in which Buddhist precepts are different from mundane laws. And so basically the word discipline can be explained as a perfect standard for the action of our body, mind, and speech. Therefore, we practice the paramita of discipline as a way to ensure that the things that we think, say, and do not hurt other people. There are many reasons to why we need to stick to such discipline. For example, when people allow themselves to become lax in their moral behavior, they invariably also become loose in their thinking, and they will be less capable of reaching their goals. So if you always tell yourself, this is okay, there's nothing wrong with me doing this, when you know it's wrong, and then you'll be less likely to achieve your goals.